Dr. Kilgood. All right, we come to our speaker, and our speaker is Mick Normington. He's a business researcher for the State Labor Department in Texas, where he interviews company executives about the kind of workers they need and why. Mick went to a few colleges and earned his bachelor's degree in business journalism from the University of Missouri, an MBA from the University of Georgia, and a master's degree in economic development from the University of Southern Mississippi. Mick co-wrote the book, Working Texas Style, about the rapidly changing labor economy in Texas after the Great Recession. He also co-wrote the book, An Atmosphere of Enterprise, Influences of Small and Young Businesses on Texas Job Creation, which just came out a few months ago. In his spare time, Mick is a board president of the Writers League of Texas, which is a nonprofit that promotes literacy and helps people in Texas write that book they've always wanted to write. Today, Mick is here to discuss the modern Texas economy and the impact on jobs in our region. Welcome, Mick.
Thank you very much for having me. Craig, can you pass out some more of the handouts to anybody who didn't get it? Folks, I'm not an economist, so nobody has any reason to fall asleep for the next 25 minutes. I'm going to go through my normal 1-hour presentation in just 25 minutes. The handout has more information than you need, but I think we're going to go over a few topics regarding jobs that you might find particularly interesting, particularly for this community. We're going to go through some of the data on that as well. I know that there are people who like data and people who like human trends. We're going to try to satisfy both kinds of people today. Now, I see a few faces. My friend Scott Martinez brought me to speak to you 16 months ago, and then the weasel took off to Louisiana. So, if some of you find this a little bit repetitive, I'm going to go very fast. Okay. First off, there are different ways that we can look at the economy. These are some of the key questions I just want to put in your brain. What if the economy and the kinds of companies who create jobs are a little bit different than the kinds of companies we normally think of? And what if the impact of education is shifting, for better or for worse? And the impact of education is really impacting Texas workers at a rapid pace right now. I'm going to talk very briefly about the big economy. When we say the economy, there is no such thing as the economy. In essence, you can think of the economy in 3 different parts. You can think of the money economy. Anybody in the banking industry, this is what you care about. You can think about the output economy. Anybody in the manufacturing services sector, you can think of the GDP, the output of your community or your company or your country. And the third part of the economy is really the labor economy, the workers. And I'm only going to speak to people over the age of 35. If you're under the age of 35, please cover your ears because this is going to make no sense to you. Anybody who's over the age of 35, can you remember a time when a company would get more orders, hire more workers, its output would go up, and its stock price would go up? Can you remember a time when that happened?
What a concept.
It was basically from the 1780s to about the 1980s. About 200 years, that's how the economy worked. These 3 components to the economy were tightly held together. They were very connected. And then the world happened, and life happened. And we had a decoupling of these 3 components of the economy. So now, folks under the age of 35, you might recognize this scenario. A company gets more orders, lays off workers, its output goes up dramatically, and its stock price goes up. And that's more of the world that we live in. Change happens at a much faster pace, and change impacts the workers in your community at a faster pace, faster than ever before. Quickly, those 3 components. Here's how you can think of the money economy, the Dow Jones, over 14,000. Here's GDP, positive growth. Is this a glass half empty scenario or a glass is half full scenario? It's entirely up to you to decide how our economy is doing. But then we come to the labor economy. And gentlemen, if any of you are going to a singles bar tonight and you want to impress a woman, tell her about the local unemployment rate. Women will think you're very intelligent if you know this. And women want intelligent men. Is this a glass is half full or a glass is half empty kind of scenario? The lower on the line you are, the better. So basically during the recession, the unemployment rate for America was around 11%. That's pretty bad. For most of us in our lifetime, the unemployment rate has been around 5%. So we are making some improvements here in America. You see the current unemployment rates for the different communities in different areas. Is this good or not so good? It's entirely up to you to decide. Entirely up to you. I'm going to talk about the labor economy in general here in Texas. If we think about the simple labor economy, the number of workers that we have in Texas, the nerds down at the state economics department who I work with, they and I think that there's essentially 9 key contributors to the number of workers that we have in Texas. There's a lot of other factors, but these tend to be the 9 most important factors, according to me and the nerds. Today I'm just going to talk about 2 of these factors, tradable skills and new business creation. Again, just total number of workers in the United States. In Texas, this is important because this was the old high water mark. We've never had so many people employed in Texas as we did just before we went into the recession. So at the end of 2008, that was the high water mark. We've never had so many people doing things and collecting a paycheck. And we passed that more than a year ago. So we seem to be making tremendous strides here in Texas, as well as in the Austin metro area. So this is total number of workers. Again, the old high water mark, we blew past that almost 2 years ago. If you want to check any of my data, here's our website, and here's where you can go to look up any of my data. I'm going to try to show it to you in a little bit more simplistic form than lots of numbers. I'm going to show you a few leading economic indicators as well, so you can get an idea out into the future. On this chart, what we're tracking here is the red line, total number of workers. The green line is average weekly wages. They started to dip down a little bit. But what I think is most important is down here at the bottom. At the bottom is total number of employers, total number of businesses that have more than 4 employees. And that number has been creeping up here in Austin. It is not creeping up everywhere. It is not creeping up everywhere. And this is a key point because businesses, particularly newer businesses, are your pipeline for jobs into the future. If you are concerned, if you are, say, a workforce board or an economic development board or a chamber of commerce, you might want to think about your pipeline of future employers. This bodes well for the Austin metro area because this number is going up. And it leads me to one of my core points here. We've done quite a bit of research about what kinds of companies create jobs in the modern Texas economy. And basically, there are four camps. I'm going to get a little bit philosophical here for just 1 minute. Back in 1971, MIT economist David Birch did a survey, and he studied the Census Bureau listing of all the businesses in America. And he concluded that it was small business that creates jobs in America. And we've been repeating that mantra so that it's now almost an urban legend. Small businesses create most of the jobs in America. Well, in the last really 6 years, there have been other camps that have come up, and they've done different kinds of research about kinds of jobs. And they're all looking for that silver bullet. What are the characteristics of a company that creates jobs at the fastest rate? And you've got some other camps here. In Europe, you've got proponents of economist Joseph Schumpeter who simply say it's startup companies who tend to create jobs. New startup companies are following through the natural progression of creative destruction, where older companies die off and new companies spring to life and do business in new ways and employ greater numbers of people. Out on the East Coast, you've got the proponents who say, no, it's really young companies, particularly companies between the ages of 2 and 9 years old. It's young companies tend to add the most number of workers. And then you've got new proponents from New Orleans who are saying that it's really companies who have highly motivated CEOs. That you can have growth companies in any industry, in any community in America. It all comes down to the CEO. How aggressive does the CEO want to be when it comes to grabbing market share and pushing the company forward? I thought this was interesting, so we tried to do our own research here. And what we have is we have a database with all the employers in Texas, and we measured that over the last 25 years. And then I interviewed a lot of CEOs of growth companies. And as a result, we fall in this category, where we are finding that it is the young companies and the aggressive CEO companies who are creating most of the jobs in Texas in the modern economy. And this is how I hope you will think about moving forward. I'm going to stay philosophical for just a moment here. If you want to think about the circle of life of job creation in our society, this is how it tends to go with industries creating companies, companies creating occupations and jobs, jobs employing people. Then most of the turnover comes when people leave a company, and most of the jobs are really replacement jobs of existing workers. And then you have people taking different positions and learning new kinds of trades and new kinds of skills, and then leaving the firm to start their own competing business. This is one way of thinking about it. And along the way, as this evolution is happening, you have consumer and business tastes and demands and even technological changes happening that inject and help cause more company development. But this is how we really see the cycle of life working for businesses in America. Injections happen at all places in this cycle. Consumer change happens, business change happens, technology change happens, and different kinds of demands spring up. So that at any point we can get new company creation. Again, I'm going to keep stressing new company creation. Because again, as we look at what kinds of companies have been creating jobs in Texas, we took a look at size of company and whether they're adding or reducing number of workers. In general, what this is telling us is it's the big companies who tend to create the most jobs. And this isn't really definitive. We've looked at startup companies, companies less than 1 year old, and companies that have died off and gone out of business. And we see a little bit here that it is also young companies who are tending to create more jobs. Another key point that we're looking at when it comes to startup companies is the number of workers per startup. Here's the rub. Companies in Texas that are getting started up are starting up with fewer employees. Now, they can do it because of technological advances, because we're perhaps better at managing people, perhaps we're better at managing clients. We can have new companies with fewer workers. But that's the problem. New companies are a pipeline to future workers. So it's a bit of a catch-22 that we have. And this trend keeps going down, which isn't good for any of us. Another key factor here is the age of companies. Now, the Great Recession caused a lot of change. It also created a bit of fear. So what we had was we didn't have the normal creative destruction of companies in Texas. What we have is we have a really aging population of companies. And companies are like people. They don't live forever. They're not intended to live forever. In Texas, we have a rapidly aging employer base. And we'll see how we do in this next business cycle that we're moving on to. In the end, here are the key points from our research. Startup companies are getting started with fewer workers. There are really two kinds of companies that create jobs in Texas. Number one are the very young companies. Number two are the big companies with more than 5,000 employees. If you're in the economic development field, you might just want to think about this as your pipeline. These are your best candidates for your pipeline of future employers. We do recognize that industry clusters exist. It's debatable about how dominant industry clusters are. But one key issue that I want to leave with you. When I talk to growth company CEOs, they're not involved with chambers of commerce. They're not involved with economic development organizations. They're not involved with their city government. They're not involved with their county government. Growth company CEOs tend to be focused just on their own company. And they get really ticked off when they don't know who their representative is at the chamber or at the EDC. They have no clue who their local economic developer is, when they have no clue who their state senator is. Now, it's partially their fault, but we are missing out on interacting with growth companies, particularly here in Texas. Here's where you can go if you want to get any of the information that I've just talked about. I'm going to keep moving forward with some more leading economic indicators. When we look at the Austin metro area, this is our best leading economic indicator. Number of trucking jobs in America. When a company or a person buys stuff, it gets shipped on a truck. What we're looking at here is number of workers, pay, and number of trucking firms. These portend well. These trends are going up. This is your future. This is our future. Our economy continues to improve in the Austin metro area. Same for temp workers, a second leading economic indicator. If this blue line is going up, this blue line of total workers is going up, that's good news. That's good news for all of you. Also, I'm tracking out here the number of temp agencies. You're getting a lot more temp agencies, particularly here in Williamson County. Another key component that we do is we take a look at simply help wanted online advertisements. For Texas, I'm going to just show you the top 25 occupations that are in demand right now. Number of openings and preferred level of education or training. I want you to just really look at two key points here. Number one, look for the word manager. You're going to see the word manager all over the place here. We have a lot of manager openings in the current Texas economy. Secondly, I want you to keep an eye out for type of training. You do not have to have a college degree to get ahead in Texas. It can help. But you do not have to have a college degree to get ahead. I'm going to talk about education a little bit more. This is in your handout if you want to take a look at, again, the current number of occupations in demand right now in Texas. Just to give you an idea of the metro areas where the demand is really focused. There are 4 key communities where there's tremendous job demand. Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, and Corpus Christi. That's where we're seeing, at the moment, the most job demand growth. Now here's your information for the Austin area. I'm going to give you the top 43 occupations. What's interesting here is that you are in one of the more white-collar communities in America. You kind of do need to have some kind of college degree here. More and more employers are asking for a college degree, whether you really need a college degree or not to fill a job. It is a horrendous catch-22 that is causing a lot of problems, but this is the current trend in our community. Employers demanding a college degree for almost any job. Again, even if you don't really need to have a college degree to do the job. You're going to see a whole lot of IT here. You're going to see a lot more demand for accounting. So in general, in Texas, there are a few key things that there tends to be more demand of. Nursing, accounting, truck driving. Those are perhaps the 3 most in-demand trainings that we have here in Texas. Those are the big growth areas. Those are the big growth occupations. And again, you've got this in your handout. But I want to just show you your community. When I think of Hutto, the Hutto metropolitan area is really a 5-city metropolitan area of Hutto, Taylor, Round Rock, Georgetown, Pflugerville. As of last night, these are your sweet 16 occupations that are in demand for the Hutto metropolitan area. I found it particularly interesting because you've got a whole lot more retail demand. Your retail occupational demand is just jumping off the charts so far this year. And we'll see how this continues. Again, this is a snapshot of your community now. This is a 90-day look at the specific occupations with the specific required training for your community and what's in demand now. Just so you have some perspective, here are the top 16 communities in the greater Austin metro area based on job openings, based on help wanted listings. And you can see you guys have been climbing up the charts. Anybody who had to see my presentation 16 months ago, Hutto didn't make this list. Now you're making the list, and you're moving up. You're not moving up as fast as San Marcos, but you're moving up. And just think about that for your future as far as competition for workers, as far as housing issues, as far as traffic issues, as far as overall economic development in your community. We find this interesting. Again, the black line here is total number of want ads. The red line is total number of unemployed people in the 5-county Austin metro area. This is fantastic. This is one of the best ratios in America. In Austin, we have 1.6 unemployed people for every job posting. Most of America is somewhere between 4 and 5 unemployed people per job posting. And there are places in Texas where the ratio is 8 unemployed people for every 1 job posting. You are probably in one of the best, most dynamic economic markets in North America. And it's been improving. Just so you know, here's where we are now, 1.6 unemployed people. Yes, fast.
Can you explain what a job posting is?
Yeah, if an employer puts an ad online, what we have is we have something called Spider software. It goes out on the internet every night. It filters out duplicates. So if Monster posts a job, and Career Builder posts a job, and Dell posts a job, it only counts that job once. And it ties it back to which city the job posting is for. Okay, so what we have here is we've got an improving ratio. Again, in America, somewhere between 4 and 5 unemployed people per job posting, but not in your community. That means more competition in workers. Just keep that in mind. And more competition for managers. Keep that in mind. I'm going to talk very briefly about your future demand for workers. The nerds who I work with, they calculate what kind of occupations we have more demand in different regions of Texas. Here's where you can go if you want to double check the information. I don't want anybody to go to the last 2 pages of this handout because I'm going to ask you a quick pop quiz, but I've got your top 100 occupations for your community in the back. What we're doing is we're forecasting out 10 years. So it's going to project which occupations have the most growth. We're doing very basic calculus to calculate this, and we're really extrapolating over the last 5 years of occupations in your community, in your region of Texas. Well, let's just do a quick pop quiz. I'm going to name 4 occupations. You tell me which your community is going to have more demand for between now and 2020. Okay? One occupation, lawyer. Another occupation, bartender. Another occupation, farmer-rancher. Another occupation, clergy. Does anybody want to guess which one of those your community will have more demand of over the next 8 years? Does anybody want to guess? Bartender. Who said that?
The preacher.
Anybody else want to guess?
It's not a bad.
If you go to the back 2 pages, you'll see clergy is actually the occupation that will have more demand. Bartender is after clergy. You have very little demand for lawyers in this region of Texas. Perhaps you have an oversupply of lawyers. And you are rapidly getting rid of farmers and ranchers. It looks like you're going to continue getting rid of farmers and ranchers at a very, very rapid pace. Again, this is just looking at the top most in-demand occupations for your region between now and 2020. I'm ranking this in a few different ways. This is simply based on growth rate. Oh, please, nobody look at the far right-hand column in these charts. Do not look at those. When it comes to teachers, yes, we've been getting rid of a lot of teachers in Texas. However, the population growth is going tremendously. And so we're going to have to start hiring teachers somewhere in the next 2 years. And for better or for worse, we're going to have to hire more school administrators. Keep that in mind. It's been a dangerous occupation in recent years, but particularly for your community, you're going to have more demand for school administrators. If you have to listen to any of my presentations, I always stress this. When I talk to CEOs, here is the key issues that they're constantly talking to me about. Number 1, 4 generations in the same workforce. The silent generation, who are now ages 68 to 84. The baby boom generation, who are going to be ages 48 to 66, that's after the age of 65. Baby boomers are supposed to retire. They're not retiring in Texas, especially women. No women baby boomers are retiring. I'm not kidding. Generation X, which is my generation, we're between the ages of 33 and 47. In Texas, we're the only state in the union where my generation make up the largest proportion of the labor force. We are a tiny generation everywhere else except Texas. We dominate the Texas workforce. And then the millennial generation. Those are people between the ages of 18 and 33 now. They're all of working age. This is one of the toughest places in America for them to get a job. Their unemployment rate tends to be 3 to 4 percentage points higher than the other generations. It's because we don't have any retirements going on. It's because our economy may not be adding jobs at a rate fast enough. But as a result, we have a serious problem in Texas with people in their 20s not working. And this is a major, major issue for all of us to deal with. We can't leave an entire generation behind in their careers. It will impact our economy moving forward. Please do keep that in mind. If you've had to hear me before, I spend more time on this slide, but this is simply the breakdown of where the different generations are. The blue line is the baby boomers. They started to retire at the end of the last decade, and then they came back into the workforce. These baby boomers, they're crafty and wily. You can't keep them out. They keep coming back. And again, they're not retired. The red line is Generation X. The green line, which is by far the biggest generation. The millennial generation is the green line. And that green line should be twice as big as all the other bars. It's not. And this continues to be a major crisis that we have moving forward in the work economy. I bring up the issue of the 4 generations in the workplace because CEOs keep telling me these 4 generations are terrible at talking to one another. Terrible. And CEOs get really annoyed by this non-communication going on between these 4 generations because in an organization, if you want your organization to be more efficient, workers have to talk to one another about how to do things better and come up with new ideas and push new ideas forward and work with different kinds of customers. But if that communication is not happening, that efficiency is not being realized. And that does not help our companies moving forward. I bring this up because if you can make friends with somebody who is much older or much younger than you in your organization, you will be a hero. You will make for a better organization and you will be more valuable in your career. Information on migration patterns. The black lines are where people are moving from into Williamson County. This is older data from 2008, 2009, but just so you know, your population here is growing quite a bit by transplants. Our birth rates continue to go down with the recession, but people continue to move to Texas. We're no longer at the 1,000 people a day moving to Texas, but you are still experiencing a lot more people moving here from out of state. Ladies, if there's one place you want to be to find men with jobs, it's Williamson County. Educational breakdown by county and by state. We are trending more, as I said before, to workers needing more education. You need education not so you can do the job so much as education is a marker for what you can achieve. Getting your high school diploma is the most basic project you can complete in America. And so we're now dealing with a lot more companies who yell at people like me and Craig when people with only a GED or less than a high school diploma show up to apply for a job. Or when people show up to apply for a normal job and they don't have a bachelor's degree. A diploma or a degree tends to become a particular marker for your achievement. What can you accomplish? And employers, more and more, particularly in this community, want people who have more accomplishments. It's simply, it's a cost of doing business. It is not fair, but it is the current cost of doing business. You decide if these are good enough numbers for you. Again, one of the great criticisms of Texas is that we have too high a proportion of people without a high school diploma. Those numbers are improving a little bit. Perhaps not as much as the business community wants. And again, it's the business community that is demanding more and more diplomas and degrees. Are these numbers good enough? You decide. I bring this up because there is a professor, an economics professor, out at the University of Texas, El Paso, and his point to economic development groups in Texas is that you can't control everything. If there's one most effective thing that you can do to improve your economy moving forward, it is to get your high school graduation rates up. And his research shows that if you can simply improve your local high school's graduation rates, you will improve your economy in the short term and the long term. Something to keep in mind. I don't know that that is the most effective thing that an economic development board can do, but it might be. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Breakdown of people who are unemployed or looking for jobs versus the help wanted online job postings and the requirement for those jobs, the education requirement. I do bring this up because I hope you have a community college in your community. The associate's degree is where we're getting the most bang for the buck. And the associate's degree is in big demand in Texas. Big demand. If you have a community college in your community, that's your crown jewel of your economic development plan. It is radically powerful. Employers want it, citizens want it. And I hope your community college is up and running very quickly. Again, just a few ways to look at unemployment in America. Unemployment by education level. This is one way to slice up the U.S. workforce. Again, I'm going to stress, you don't have to have a college degree to get ahead in Texas. There are a lot of people with just a high school diploma making more money than people with a bachelor's degree. A lot of people. And a whole lot of people with an associate's degree making more money than people with a bachelor's degree. More education can help, but not all the time. Not all the time. I say that. This was an interview I did with Michael Dell. His key point, the key constraint that he sees in the Texas workforce is kids not taking hard classes. What he wants to get a job at Dell, and he loves to joke, you don't have to have a college degree to work at Dell. And their CEO is living proof of that. He dropped out after his first semester of college. He really wants people who understand college calculus and college physics. And his point is, you just need to understand those concepts so you can understand how the world is changing, how business needs are changing. If you can understand that, you can understand the future. If you can't understand that, they probably can't use you. And he really needs people who have international communication experience. And we're going to get to the topic of communications in just a moment. Okay, I always supply this. This is pay per degree. These are the most popular bachelor's degrees in Texas. If you have a psychology degree, do not speak up. I'm going to make fun of you right now. Number 3, psychology. Fastest growing major. Let me tell you about the degree in psychology. First year pay for somebody with a bachelor's degree in psychology between 2009 and 2011, pay went down by 4%. Okay? Pay went down. The number of people getting a bachelor's degree in psychology between 2009 and 2011 went up by 23%, while pay is going down. You can't always match up what the market wants with what people want. We can't control people in this country as much as I want to. But I say this because the cost of higher education is going up higher and higher. What you study matters now more than ever. There's nothing wrong with getting a psychology degree. But does anybody want to guess how many help wanted ads we had last year looking for people with a bachelor's degree in psychology? Does anybody want to guess? 7. Any other guesses?
4.
More than 6,000 graduates. Here's what we're looking at for the most popular associate's degrees. Again, of the top 20, thank you very much for playing, of the top 20 bachelor's degrees, pay has been going down for 10 of the top 20 most popular bachelor's degrees. For associate's degree, pay is going down for 12 of the top 20 associate's degrees. What you study matters now more than ever. Here are the highest paying college degrees in Texas. Pay is going up for all of these profitable degrees. And associate's degree in fire protection. I hope there's somebody in here who's got it. That degree is money. That degree is money in this state. Pay is going up for all of these degrees. If I leave you with a few thoughts, keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. The more math you take, the more money you will make in the Texas economy. And I don't care what you've done. I didn't take calculus till I was 27. I didn't take my first statistics class till I was 27. I didn't take my second statistics class till I was 28. I didn't take my third statistics class till I was 41. I'm not that smart. If I can do it, you can too. And I hope you have a community college here where you can study some math, because it'll propel your career forward in the modern Texas economy. Tactical skills are also important. A key point, if anybody has to talk to any high school students, please keep this in mind. We run a hotline where high school and junior high students call us up. We want to get specific information about what do different jobs pay in Texas in different areas, what kind of education do you have to have for different jobs, and what are these jobs about? And it's kind of cool. We've been doing this now for about 23 years. And for about the first 20 years, lawyer was number 1. Constantly, lawyer was number 1. And we were really fretting it, because pay for lawyers has been going down. We had an oversupply of lawyers in Texas, apparently. And we have a lot of unemployed lawyers in Texas. We have a lot of people who have graduated from law school who cannot pay their student loans. In fact, we now have most people with a law degree in Texas are not making enough to make the student loan payments on their law degree that they just got. There's never a perfect balance of workers to demand. But this was something particularly interesting. 2 key points here. The new number 1 is professional athlete. We are not creating more professional athlete jobs in Texas. I can't explain exactly why. Professional athlete is by far the number 1 most in-demand occupation of Texas high school students, despite the fact that there is no growth in the number of jobs. You decide why that is happening. But we are seeing some market implications. Truck driver is brand new to this list. Multimedia artist, that's primarily web developer for the most part, is brand new. And welder is brand new. Some kids are witnessing what is going on in the economy and witnessing what kinds of jobs are in demand in their community. We hope that you will talk to more young people about the twists and turns of your career to perhaps influence some young people of your own.
Question.
Yes.
That's the first time I saw a welder there in your whole presentation. Any relationship or recognition of like the construction trades or technical blue-collar trades, plumbers?
Well, I showed you the 43 most in-demand occupations, and you did not see welder on that list, did you?
I did not, and that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
That's and all your everything.
So
everything
demand
you
for those other
presented today,
occupations
just
is higher.
a second. I'll tell you what my question is in answer. In your whole presentation, I have not seen any of that. Construction trades, your top 9 categories, your things in demand, like you had truckers and construction workers and that type of industry, design, etc., is an indicator of growth in an area. So what is your thoughts on that, and do you see any relevance? I talked to a lot of educators, and they're seeing, just like you've been saying, master degrees and things aren't for everybody. So community colleges, technical colleges, that's what we're getting out trying to promote. So especially in the cost of education, you know, to get more technical trades and things. And I haven't seen any of those in your top 20 list. Anything reflecting construction trades or technical, and this welder was the first one. So do you see that? Is that in demand, or is that, are those fields that we're not needing anymore?
Well, we certainly do need them. And if you take a look at the last 2 pages, you're going to see welders showing up on that list. It is a growth occupation. But it is also a cyclical demand occupation. So when there are projects in a community, then they need more welders. And you primarily, if you want to take a look at Corpus Christi or Houston, you're going to see welder close to the top of the list. We are a more white-collar community here in the Austin metro area. We need a whole lot more web developers. We need a whole lot more software programmers than we need welders. It doesn't mean that welders are not in demand. They're just not in as much of demand in this community, in this economy. But take a look at the final 2 pages, and you're going to see a lot more of the trades listed there. You are going to see more demand there. But companies are also more efficient. Welders are a whole lot more efficient than they used to be. And so many welding companies...
I'm focusing more on carpenters, more on welders, more on mechanics, more on electricians. They're non-existent around here.
Okay.
And you know, we could...
well, I'll tell you what, why don't you and I talk about this offline afterwards?
Yeah,
okay.
Good enough.
All right. Moving forward, so I can get you folks out of here. If you want information about the 800 different occupations that we have out there, here's a site that we've set up specifically for high school students. It's called Reality Check. They go in here, it's an online game. It takes the average teenager 11 minutes to play this game. We know that half the people playing this game are adults trying to do career transition. And what this game is about is deciding what kind of occupation are you interested in what kind of community, and comparing the cost of living in that community with how much you can make in different occupations and the related training and education that corresponds with that. Again, if any adults want to go there, you've got the website where you can go to play it, and we've even got it for the iPhone. If you want to play it online while you're listening to a boring presentation. Here's where you can also go if you want to get information about occupations as well, specific information about occupations, and the training and wage information for different occupations. And I cannot let you get out of this room without having this basic information about our workforce solutions offices. You can call them the unemployment offices, you can call them the job seeker and the job supply offices. This is where you can go in your community if you want to find out about the most number of new job openings. Some people have control of what's called the Work in Texas database, and it is the biggest database of jobs in demand right now in your community. And you can access it online, but to be frank, it's a lot more efficient if you simply go to the office and talk with somebody, and they'll take you through that database. I bring this up because almost half of our unemployed people have been unemployed for more than 6 months. I'll bet you $1, every single one of us is only 1 degree removed from somebody who's been unemployed long term. Whether it's your brother, your sister, your mother, your best friend from high school, your best friend from 3 jobs ago, all of us are just 1 degree removed from somebody who's been unemployed long term. Be a good friend and recommend that they go to one of these offices and learn more about what kinds of jobs are in demand now, and learn more about how to improve their resume and their interviewing skills. We can't continue to have so many long-term unemployed people in our society. It causes major ripple effects for some of our public policy leaders. Again, we just found this was particularly interesting. This is a brand new survey of employers about how people screw up job interviews. Really, the top 5 issues are the most important. I've got this in your handout. I'm going to keep rising forward so I can get you out of here. When we talk to CEOs and human resources directors, these are the 5 things that they tell us. Number 1, they want people with good communication skills. Can you explain what you do to your coworkers? Can you explain it in just a couple sentences? Can you ask a question in just a couple sentences? Can you be more efficient in your communication? Critical thinking skills. Can you think logically? If you're presented with some information, a series of information, can you make it logical instead of an emotional decision as to what might come next? Technical knowledge. I've said this before. When we look at all the help wanted ads, the number 1 skill in demand in Texas is knowledge of an Excel spreadsheet. White-collar workers, blue-collar workers, pink-collar workers, green-collar workers, gold-collar workers. All kinds of workers need to understand an Excel spreadsheet. I didn't learn Excel until I was 27, and I'm still learning it. I'm not that smart. Please, for your own career, use Excel more. A can-do attitude. And number 5 is brand new in the last few years. CEOs saying, we've got a much more diverse workplace. Can you get along with people who look different than you? In the last 15 years, we've seen a lot of groups move into the Texas workplace, particularly women. Secondly, Hispanic Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, people with college degrees we've never heard of before from institutions we've never heard of before. Can you work with people with a different background than you or very different than you? Do you have that experience? Because that's what human resources directors are listening for when they interview candidates. Do you have that experience of working with people who are different than you? Because the workforce of today's Texas economy is very diverse. But those are all surface level responses as to what kinds of workers they need. We are categorizing this in 4 areas, which we call balancing of will and skill. When we listen to CEOs and hiring managers, they're really looking for people who can balance this. And this is tough. We want to start out with workplace basics. Do you have some critical thinking skills and some ability to simply talk with your coworkers, even if they're of a different age than you? Do you have academic skills, schooling skills? Basic schooling is critically important. Also important, do you have the ability to distill information from your coworkers? Do you have the ability to distill? I bring this up because the University of Pennsylvania is documenting a major trend that we have in America. Companies are doing less in-house training. So you are required to learn how to do your job faster and learn how to do your job more efficiently every year to keep your job. With less help from your boss, more listening to your coworkers. And finally, willpower. More and more employers are asking for people who simply show some initiative. And one thing that we want to stress here is that perhaps there was never a career ladder. Perhaps what we have is a career lattice. And by lattice, what I mean is anybody who's done any gardening will recognize a lattice. So to progress in your career, you don't just move up with 1 or 2 employers. We all start at the bottom, we go to a job, and we may go over to another employer, and we have to pick up skills at each stop along the way in our career. Oh, and by the way, in the modern economy, everybody gets laid off. Everybody's going to get knocked back down. And you have to pick yourself back up and keep moving forward and picking up new skills along the way. And as you pick up more skills and you expand your network of friends and influencers, you can achieve more. You may have to accept a job at a lower pay than what you were expecting. You may have to take a job with not as sexy of a title as you were hoping. You may have to change industries. For baby boomers and for my Generation X, we're going to be working in at least 4 industries. Not 4 jobs, 4 industries in our lifetime now. The millennials will be working, according to the Labor Department, in 7 different industries in the course of their career. So this kind of flexibility to move your way up to higher paying and more fulfilling jobs requires more flexibility. And we keep hearing this from more and more Texas employers, that they're desperately looking for workers who offer a little bit of flexibility. Please keep this in mind for yourself and for the people in your lives. With that, I'll wrap it up. I'll be at the bar drinking all the rest of the coffee right now. Thank you very much. You've been a better audience than I normally get. Thank you.
All right. Really quickly, we have one other person that we wanted to bring up. We were focusing on some of our businesses, our local businesses. So we have Michelle Larkin from Larkin Early Developmental Learning Center. And one thing I want to say quickly, we did that entrepreneur class together, and we had several people come out of it and really benefit their business. So I'll let you tell more of what happened and what goes on. Thank you.
Good morning and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. I'm going to be really brief. My name is Michelle Larkin, and I have lived in this community for about 4 years now. And this is our second year in business here at Hutto. My family has a larger daycare center that I came from. And before that, I've been on the career lattice myself because I was the program manager for Black & Decker. And I experienced rounds of layoff. But needless to say, I am very fortunate to be in a career field where I get them when they're small and I get to see them grow and develop and go on to be successful young men and women. Our center, we accept newborn to 12 years old, which means we have a before and after school program, but primarily focusing on the infant to 4 years old. We start the educational process with them at 18 months, and currently one of our goals for this year was to purchase tablets for especially the 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, so that because we are such a technology-driven society or group of people, and a lot of them already play with mom and dad's phones and they know, so a lot of that's educational, and that's what we want to keep up with, the things that are going on, because I know some of the schools have tablets for the kids, and so we want to make sure that they're prepared, and that's our goal, is to educate our students for success in an ever-changing world. I was very fortunate to be a part of the business class with that Ann spoke of, and it was an eye-opener. I have been in business before, but for my husband to actually go through that, to see it from a startup, from the beginning to the end, was it was very fulfilling to see someone who'd never been in business see how to start a business and how it would grow. So it gave him a better understanding of what I do on a day-to-day basis, as well as how other businesses start. So I hope that's something that can continue for this community. As far as our after-school program, we have a really good program. As a matter of fact, one of our high school seniors that attends the Hutto High School is my after-school program person, and so when the kids come in, they wash hands, use the restroom, they eat their snack, and immediately start homework. So they're tutoring. We're on doing homework. It's checked before parents pick up, just to keep in that educational piece, and that's something that one of our long-term goals is to actually partner with our local ISDs to ensure that we're keeping up with what they're doing, and it's beneficial for not only just us, but the community as a whole. So that's something that we're very interested in. And as far as future and long-term goals, one of the things that I really would love to see is a partnership with some of the other businesses that may be interested, because we have some families who are unable to really afford daycare, but they don't quite meet the criteria that the workforce offers through CCMS. So they're kind of shuffled around here and there and kind of left out of that process. So that's something that we want to be able to scholarship students in the future for their tuition. So we have a lot of things going on over there. So if you ever want to stop by and check us out, you're more than welcome to. We'll give you the grand tour, and today we're going to sugar them up and have a party and send them on home so that mom and dad can, hopefully they'll crash and mom and dad can have a good time. But thank you for inviting inviting me. Thank you, Shauna. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
By Baked and Stoned or Edward Jones or over there. And thank y'all very much, and we'll see you next month.